This is the Jaco Booyens Show. Thank you for joining. Together, we will restore our America. Man, I'm excited. I'm excited for this first podcast and first show. It's been a long time coming, but let's dive right in. There's certain things in our country that we're touching that should be the untouchables. You cannot touch the foundation of a country or the building will fall. Let me give you an example. If the country was a high-rise building, you could gladly go to the 30th floor and knock the walls out and redecorate the furniture and do with it really whatever you want. I don't really care what you do at the 30th floor if I don't live on the 30th floor. But what I do care about is when you get into the basement of the building and you start taking out foundation, because the whole building's going to fall. What am I saying when I'm saying this? We cannot touch our children. Our children are foundational in this country. When you start messing with our children, the building's going to fall. The country will fall. We cannot touch the Constitution. It is foundational. So there's certain things that we should bipartisan just agree are the untouchables. But unfortunately today, we've got a bunch of people who seem to be very interested in having the building fall because they're touching certain things that shouldn't be touched. Now, if you ask me, family is untouchable. The importance of family, the importance of having a father in the house and having a father present with his children, to me, is untouchable. And I think statistics and history proves that when you remove the father from a home or you incentivize a family financially to have a father not be home, you are going to touch the foundation of the building and the building's going to fall. For many of you, you know I fight child sex trafficking with a large group of people on our team and definitely would rather give them the credit than myself. Children are untouchable. We have come so far in our country today that we're now actually having groups in this country that are moving towards wanting to classify pedophilia as a sexual orientation. Again, I tell you, if you want to do something with sex up at the 30th floor, go at it. But when you start touching our children and start having adults make decisions sexually for our children, or start manipulating our children, or start grooming our children under the law, or writing law that, according to me, is in contradiction with God's law that says take care of the widow and the orphan and the child and feed the hungry and the poor, you are absolutely touching the foundation of this country and we're going to see the country fall. That's why we say together we will restore our America. And when I say we're going to restore our America, what am I talking about? I'm talking about restoring it morally. First, let's get a moral compass back in this country. Let's agree in this show that I'm not going to hoodwink you and you're not ever going to feel like games are being played with you. We're going to get straight to the point. We're going to talk about things the others aren't talking about. We're not going to regurgitate news topics. If you've seen it on CNN or Fox, what's the purpose for me to talk to you about it? I want to talk to you about life. I want to talk to you about your life because you matter. I want to talk to you about your purpose. I want to talk to you about what happens when you wake up in the morning. Do you know what your purpose is? Do you know where you're going? Do you understand how you fit into society? Do you know how many people watch you and learn from you, good or bad? Do you know that how you feel by yourself at night is not how others see you? Do you know that the insecurities you carry is not how others see you necessarily? Do you know that certain things that you carry, the baggage that you carry in life, I believe God has forgiven you from? If you believe in Him, if you don't, let's really meet on social media. You DM me and I'd love to introduce you to a better way, an easier way to do life. But I will tell you this today, there are watchmen in this country, and particularly those of faith. If you are someone of faith, then you are by default a watchman, and we are not watching over our children. So let's dive into sex trafficking a little bit, because a lot of you know that there's a lot of my social feed that focuses on sex trafficking, and we're going to broaden the scope here in this show, in this podcast, to really go after how do we restore our America. And this is not, a gravy train about making America great again. No, really, my focus here is morally and with intellectual honesty and with absolute truth, let's restore this country to be the light beacon that it was desired and destined to be for the nations, for all the nations, and yes, particularly for our friend Israel. Sex trafficking is an epidemic in our country that is loose. Unfortunately, it is widely supported and it is being enabled with the justice system And I will go after 100% after certain things that I think is absolutely a problem in sex trafficking today. But first, let's just get to the reality, as you know, that it is real. It is happening in our communities. It is not just a runaway child. It is not just a kidnapping. This is not taken with Liam Neeson and a child that's a foreign exchange student, and all of a sudden she's in the wrong party at the wrong time. We're talking about American-born children in our homes, in our neighborhoods, and they're being taken for granted and being abused sexually, unfortunately, on our watch. How can this happen? How can it be the United States of America and not Cambodia or Thailand or the Dominican Republic or Haiti? It does happen there. Unfortunately, it happens in every single country in the world. But it happens in the United States, and it happens in all 50 states of the United States. And there's not a single zip code that is immune to this thing. Why? Because good men have done nothing. My wife, who is an amazing writer, wrote the film 8 Days. For those of you who haven't seen the film yet, please go watch the film 8, the number 8, D-A-Y-S, 8 Days. It is about actual events of child sex trafficking. In that film, the screen cuts to black, and Amber, the victim, you hear her thoughts, and Amber says, evil exists when good men do nothing. And unfortunately, in this country, some of the supposedly good men are actually the bad actors. For how long did people think Epstein was a good man? But he's a bad actor. And do not for 1 second think that it's the upper echelon, the 1% that's committing this crime. It's the Jeffrey Epsteins of the world, and we have now caught our bad guy. Because I'll tell you, America loves to find Billy the Kid. You know, when there's a crime committed, you always hear the police saying, we're going to find the bad guy. Because there's an outcry from the community, the local community, that's saying, find the bad guy because we want to sleep at night. So here's what happened with the Me Too movement. The Me Too movement started off right. The Me Too movement started off by women saying, listen, we've got to speak up, which is right. No abuse is acceptable at any level. But then the Me Too movement got hijacked. And unfortunately, the bad guys also understand that when there's enough pressure on them, they will self-sacrifice one of their own so that the American population can sleep at night and think we caught the bad guy. So Hollywood sacrificed Epstein, and America sang that song, and Epstein's in prison, and now everything is back to status quo in Hollywood because we caught our bad guy. The same thing is happening with Epstein. In 2008, Epstein walked. Could have had him in 2008. He walked, bumped down to misdemeanor. This time around, supposedly a suicide. We won't get into that here. But he's no longer here. The sex trafficking community willingly sacrificed him and said, you take Epstein, catch the bad guy, and America is going back to sleep thinking, we caught the bad guy, because he's the only guy you're hearing about. Well, let me tell you what sex trafficking really looks like. It is the janitor and the school principal, the police chief and the senator, the guy next door, the Fortune 500 CEO, the clerk, the hospital worker, the nurse, the kindergarten teacher, the guy that's teaching Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. It is everybody. Why? Because it is sexually immoral sin. It doesn't discriminate. This is not a black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Native American issue. This is an issue where people make agreement with sexual immorality, and ultimately that drug is the most violent, most dangerous drug on earth, and it is vicious. It has no end. The high will never stay the high. You always got to go deeper down that wormhole, and there's one way, and it's rock bottom. And unfortunately, rock bottom in that business is sex with a minor, preferably for them pre-puberty. That is why the average age of children in our country that are being sexually sold for money, right, and for gifts and for favor is 12 years old. We lead the world with the youngest average, and unfortunately, our country has done such a great job or a terrible job at protecting our children that we are the leading nation on earth commercializing sex with children. Sure, there's other nations where the occurrences are higher because some of those nations condone it by their faith or their religion, right? Like the Middle East. Under Sharia law, certain things can happen that cannot happen under Christian, beliefs or under Catholic beliefs. Under Hinduism, certain things can happen. Polygamy, people not living in single person relationships, right? There's places in the world where child abuse or children being married off at age 8 is illegal, but they're not selling them for benefit. In this country, We are selling our children because it is a commercial enterprise. So, how did we get here as America to a place where we have to say, let's restore our America together? You're a voice, and I want you to be the voice to restore our America. How did we get here where we actually need people to be a voice to go restore America? We have forfeited the good things because we're afraid in this country. Good men are afraid to stand up. We're afraid to be politically incorrect. Well, here we are going to be politically incorrect. Because by default, if I tell you who I am, they'll tell you I'm politically incorrect. Yes, I am a lover of Jesus Christ. I am a Christian. I'm a capitalist. I love the United States of America. I bleed red, white, and blue. I am a legal immigrant. I'm a conservative. But I will not politicize the issue of saving children. This is a bipartisan issue. There are things on this show that we're going to talk about where you absolutely say, well, that's partisan. Sure. But when it comes to saving our children and protecting our children, you hear me. I have and will continue to fight as hard for the Muslim kid as the Christian kid, the agnostic kid, the Native American on the reservation, or the Asian illegal immigrant. It is irrelevant. Or the Hispanic or the South African illegal immigrant. It is irrelevant for me. When it comes to children, children have to be protected because they are the least. After all, if I do believe in the book that I tell you I believe, the Bible, then the Bible says better for you to have a millstone around your neck and throwing yourself in the ocean. You understand what that means, right? You go to the bottom and you don't come back up. Rather do that than hurt a child. But we have people in this country hurting children, and we have a court system in this country that does not want to prosecute. Of course, not everybody, but there is a silent, violent epidemic among the district attorneys in this country that do not want to prosecute. And this is almost an untouchable issue, particularly when you start talking about who is buying, who is paying for sex with children. Now that's an issue. When it comes to, hey, let's arrest the pimp, let's arrest the bottom girl, which, by the way, from between the pimp and the victim, there are normally girls, women who were victims themselves, who are victims themselves, who are being forced to go recruit and basically manhandle these girls. You see today that they're looking for Jeffrey Epstein's accomplices, these two women that were his recruiters. These pimps are cowards, every single one of them. It's like a bully. A bully is actually a very broken vessel that's crying out for help. These guys are broken, but they're cowards. So they have women do their dirty work for them in between. And these women have been coerced, frauded, manipulated, right? Are in debt bondage, etc., right? So we love arresting the pimp. We love arresting those bottom girls. And previously, we loved arresting the victim and calling them a prostitute. They're not prostitutes. Get that word out of your vocabulary. A child that is sold for sex can never be a prostitute. That child does not have the mental capacity. And we're going to bring some experts onto this show that's going to talk to you about how the brain works. And I'll make sure to bring some experts onto the show that do not have my political beliefs, but that will come and be honest with you just about how the brain works. What imprinting looks like when a child is prematurely forced into a sexual situation or just exposed to sex, as what they're trying to do today in our public school system, where they have CSE, comprehensive, not comprehensive at all, but comprehensive sexual education, where they're actually teaching 10-year-old boys how to give consent to oral sex and to sex. Why in the world should a 10-year-old know how to give consent? Unless you want him to give consent because you want to legalize pedophilia as a sexual orientation and you want that child to be an accomplice, right? For it to be consensual. It's sick. It's sick, let me tell you. It's twisted. We have folks in this country that have made an agreement with the enemy, with evil, and they want the building to fall. That's why they are attacking the foundation of this country. And I'm saying no more. You're a voice and you're going to stand up. We're going to protect the foundation. We're going to give people equal rights. Everybody under the Constitution. Black, white, red, Hispanic, conservative, Christian, LGBTQ. It doesn't matter. You have your rights under the Constitution, but you cannot jack with that Constitution because the building will come down and then everybody dies. Unless that's what they want. Unless the motive is no more America as it used to be. And that is not going to happen. Not on our watch, because I believe we've been given a great commission, yes, by God, to be a nation of all nations, to be a lighthouse so the other nations don't hit the rocks, that their ship can sail freely, a nation to be the only real, true friend of Israel. Thank you, President Trump, for moving, and all those involved, it wasn't just one man, moving that embassy to Jerusalem to make a bold statement to say, listen, we are actually with you, because I do believe a friend of Israel is a nation that's going to stand. And that is under attack. In this country, we've got college campuses in this country that have outlawed pro-Israel speech. Unacceptable. That's anti-Semitic. That by default, my friend, is racism. Do not for 1 second think that racism is a black-white thing. It's so funny. You get these people who will say, people are Nazis. They throw the word Nazi out, and they throw white supremacy out. So they call Hitler a Nazi. And they call Hitler a racist. Well, if Hitler was a racist, which he was, why? Because he profiled a single race, and his objective was to exterminate a whole race. Do you know that he actually collected artifacts? He collected art and painting and writings on the Jewish nation, and he was going to build a museum to showcase the race that he exterminated from the planet. That by default is racism. Then why today, if Israel is under attack, is it not racism? Or any race, for that matter, that gets profiled. I was, after all, raised in a country that once was the most racially contentious nation on the face of the earth. Yes, South Africa. And as God would have it, I was raised in the heightened era of apartheid. Born in 76, graduated high school in 94, Nelson Mandela president in 95. So I was at the precipice. I saw the perfect storm. But then again, I was raised by a mother that didn't see color. So actually, by default, although I was a Caucasian young white male man in South Africa, it was the white folks that accused us of being pro-black. You see, because no matter who you stand for, there's always going to be a group that's going to be against you, that think differently. It is the notion that you can please everybody that is making America fall at the moment. You cannot please everybody. You've got to have a spine and a backbone. And those guys that came over on the Mayflower wrote a Declaration of Independence, wrote a Constitution, laid the laws and the foundation with spine. They were not trying to please everybody. Clearly, they were not pleasing to those who they fled from, or the nations where they came from, or the country they created for all of us as immigrants. I'm an immigrant to come to and say, yeah, there's a better place. There's a place that's more free. There's a place where I can dream. So why is that under attack today? It is under attack because certain people want to control other people, just like they want to control children. Because if you lower the age consent for sex from 16, 18, 16 to 10 or to 12, you take away a child's choice. Is that not in contradiction with the whole movement today of everybody has choice? I call it the me movement, really, of you need to conform law and you need to conform your lifestyle according to how I feel. And it's about me. It's about how I identify or how I want my food or how I want my state to be. And everybody has to start, identifying that way or start conforming to me. And if I change my mind next week, then everybody needs to change. Life doesn't work that way. Let me give you a quick little example. It's football season, right? So let's say Aaron Rodgers, the Packers, this coming Sunday, which they're not, but let's say this coming Sunday, the Packers are playing the Patriots. Two amazing quarterbacks. You got Rodgers and Brady. And we go prior to the game and we erase the sidelines. The team runs out on the field, both teams, and there are no sidelines. What do you think would happen? Absolute anarchy. Because Brady would say, well, listen, this left hash mark is out of bounds. Aaron Rodgers would say, well, I want to score a touchdown, on the 5-yard line, and out of bounds is 4 rows into the stands. You cannot even play a football game without rules and regulation and construct. How in the world are you going to run a country if you destroy all of its foundation and its rules and its construct? You cannot. The notion that we can operate without a police force, the notion that we should get rid of certain police departments or law enforcement departments is insanity. There's no argument. We don't even need to argue about this. Let's be intellectually honest. Let's get back to a place that's healthy, where we can actually agree to disagree, where we can actually have conversation and walk away from a conversation like two great prize fighters, a heavyweight against a heavyweight. In about a month and a half, you got Ruiz, right, fighting and defending his title again against Anthony Joshua. Two guys are going to duke it out. They're going to knock the living snot out of each other, and I'm telling you, they're buying each other a beer right after, because that's what athletes do. There's no vengeance, there's no hate, there's no bitterness. We disagree in this ring right now, and we can go to blows, but ultimately certain things are bigger than us. That flag that some people choose to burn in this country, it's bigger than you. It's bigger than a political party. And ultimately the Constitution is bigger than you and bigger than your party. And our children is bigger than you and I. And it's bigger than the Republican Party or the Democrat Party or the Independents. It is bigger than any political agenda. It is, after all, our future. There is no United States, whichever kind you want, without our children. There is no future growth in technology without our children. It's very interesting when you start looking at how many people today that were never supposed to live, for whatever reason, became pioneers, became groundbreakers, became people that defied the odds. The child born at 22 weeks that should not have brain function, that goes on and becomes a math professor, right? Or a scientist or a brilliant athlete. You do not have a handle on life. You can never control it, as little as you can control the weather. God is in charge. He's on the throne, and He has a purpose for your life. And ultimately, my prayer for you and my hope for you is that you discover that purpose, because there, my friend, you're going to find joy. There you're going to find happiness. There you're going to find out that it's not about you. It's actually about other people. It's actually about what you do for and to and with other people. It's actually about teamwork. It's actually about transferring wisdom and wealth and knowledge. It's actually about transferring opportunity. It's actually about us building a country today that's stronger than yesterday, so that our kids from tomorrow start further ahead. But then we've got people in this country that want to break our children down. You've got certain countries in the world right now that's growing at a negative growth rate by purpose. China doesn't want to grow, and people say there's too many people in the world. Get in your car and take a drive. When last did you drive across the Midwest? When last did you drive east to west coast in Texas? Have you seen the open spaces? Have you seen how big the world is? Can I take you to Africa and show you what it looks like when you can travel for 5 days and not see anybody? Do you understand how big this planet actually is? Do you understand that this planet is so beautifully and wonderfully made that it actually restores itself if we take good care of it? So for this episode, I'm going to make you remember that it's about our children, and they are untouchable. They are foundational, all of them. The underprivileged kid today that lives in the projects, whose parents struggle to put food on the table, is as important as the kid that has already been tapped by Harvard or Yale, the kid that's already been tapped by being in Juilliard. They're no different. They are no different. They're equally important, each to their own, a skill set divinely created by God. Yes, maybe in the future, different job titles. Maybe one becomes president of the United States and the other one is a janitor at a high school. Well, let me tell you, that janitor at that high school, he's eyes and ears, or she is eyes and ears for kids. She can interact and uplift people. That grade school teacher is as important as the college professor. No one person more important than another, a society working together, respecting one another. First, when you meet a human being, asking yourself, let me find their value. Let me find their purpose. Let me find a way to encourage them. Let me find a way to uplift them versus can I compete or can I break them down to seemingly lift me higher? Let me tell you something. If you're one of those people that like to break others down to make yourself feel better, when you do that, you're actually digging a hole and you're sinking. You have as little impact on them as your bitterness in your heart towards someone else. They don't even know that you're bitter. You're poisoning yourself. So I'm going to ask you today Are you going to be part of the people that's going to help me restore our America, restore value, restore family, restore purpose, restore real love, not feeling? By the way, love's not a feeling. We're going to have a whole show about love becoming a feeling in this country. Love is not a feeling. You ask any married couple, it's definitely not a feeling. There's days when my wife she does not like me, nor does she have to like me. She has to love me. That's what God says, because love is a choice. See, it's the moments when I do not look lovable, when I am not likable, which is too often, right? It's in that moment when she chooses to love me that it is sacrificial, right? Not about her, but about me. And that's when bonds are being strengthened. That's real love. So don't for 1 second think because someone agrees with you, they love you. That's not love, that's a feeling. And don't for 1 second think when someone does not agree with you that they do not love you. You're listening to the wrong voice. I want you to learn what the right voice is to listen to. So let's agree. In this show, we're going to be honest. We're going to call pedophiles pedophiles. We're not going to tiptoe around people that are sick, demented, twisted, that want sex and abuse with little children. I'm not going to pull punches in the show. I'm going to tell you about Hollywood. I'm going to tell you about the cesspool of pedophilia in Washington, D.C. I'm going to name names. And we're going to take care of business. And we're going to restore America. We're going to do it with love, but we are for once and for all in this nation again going to draw a line in the sand and say there's good and there's evil. And I'm not talking about people. That is a spiritual battle that people make agreement with. Every person has good and bad in them. It depends which one of those you feed is what will manifest. And if you've made a decision that you want to feed the evil part, then evil is going to manifest through your life. Am I saying the person is evil? No, the spirit in which they operate and with which they made an agreement may be an evil spirit. May want to harm people. There's good in everybody. Have you met a mass murderer? Have you met somebody that tells you they've stabbed somebody 36 times? Because I have. And I've watched that individual turn a life around. And I've watched that individual in prison serve their time and give their heart to God and start a prison ministry and start building others up and repent and really understand what had happened. A life can change, but it takes a massive event to change a life. But I'll tell you what's really difficult, and I'll get real serious with you. Restoring a child that was sexually savaged over and over is almost impossible. By man's strength, it is, in fact, impossible. There is no 12-step program like Alcohol Anonymous that's going to help that child. Because no two are alike. Each unique individual at some point suffered abuse, made an agreement with what love is or is not, made an agreement of self-worth, the self-loathing, the justification, the questions, the hurt, the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual abuse, the emptiness. Do you know how hard it is to rehabilitate that child, to restore that child? That's why I say, let's restore our America so we do not have to restore children that are broken like that. Because if you are part of the problem, today, I'm telling you, go get help and get it quickly because we're coming. And for the bad guy, if you're the perpetrator and you're harming children, you're going to go. You're going to go to a dark, cold place for a long time because it's going to take that child a long time to be restored. We're going to dive deep in this show into what is sex trafficking, what does it look like. This was the first episode to let you know what the show is going to be about. Yes, it's going to be intense. I'm actually dialing it back. We're going to crank it up for you next week. Once a week, you're going to get the show. I'm asking you to subscribe. I'm asking you to let everybody know this is a show where we can agree to disagree. We're going to be honest. We're going to be intellectually honest. We're going to be morally honest. And hopefully, I believe, with your voice and my voice together, we're going to be able to restore our America. And it is, after all, our America. It doesn't belong to one group or one political party. How good would it be to look at both sides of the aisle again in Congress and see that there are certain things, maybe let's define them together, that are untouchable, that are deemed to be foundational in this country, that cannot be touched or the building will fall, and we will never let the bad guys make this building fall. This country is the greatest nation on earth. It is a gift to be an American citizen. If you have forgotten it, take a trip to Africa. Go dig a well. Go carry water for 4 miles. And call me when you touch back down in Atlanta, Georgia, New York, and you kiss the ground and you realize that we in fact actually are free. And we in fact actually today have more choice than any other nation. And we in fact actually have the freedom of religion. And God is good and He's protected this nation, whether you know it or not. Like I told you before, I would love for you to know Him the way that I know Him, because He has saved me, because I'm a broken guy, I'm very flawed, and He has redeemed me, and I'm a proud father and a husband, and hopefully a contributor to this great nation. So for all of those who have fought for this nation in any division, at any time, World War I or prehistorically before we even got here, for those that just shed blood or sweat so that we can be free today, you are champions. I salute you. Thank you so much. Listen, thank you for joining. Be a voice with me that can go and restore our America. Thank you so much. See you next time.